Welcome to Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. It is Eclipse Day. We are right on the outer bands of the path of totality. However, it is cloudy here, so who knows what we will actually see. It's my second full eclipse in my lifetime, so, I am not the space nerd my husband is by any stretch of the imagination. However, we will still be outside looking up at the stars or the sky. I will say that the amount of end of the world videos on YouTube because of an eclipse is astounding. It is astounding. Okay, so let's talk about what I read this week. I am going to save my DNF for the week until the end of the book discussion. So, up first is a Dave book. That would be Towers of Sunset by Modesitt Jr. This is the second book in the Saga of Recluse series. And he picked this one. And when he picked it, I did not remember that I have read it. But I have read it. So, because I am A, foolish, and B, a good sport, I'm going to substitute the next book in the series, which I just happen to have sitting on my shelves. So I try to get it a bent page unbent. And that is The Magic Engineer. And these read quickly. And the nice thing about this series is that they're all self-contained and can be read as standalones. And sure, there are characters that reoccur and you get an introduction to the magic system in the first book. But even if you haven't read that, you can still figure it out fairly easily. And these are just an easy read. So I'm going to substitute this one in. Now, when I'm going to do that, I don't know. I did, however, finish a book for Alcott April. And that was The Quiet Little Woman by Louisea Alcott. This is a series of short stories, and they're just gorgeous. Seriously, even though they're Christmas stories, I highly recommend you go pick this up. It's a very quick read. It's a very easy read for Alcott April. And I had never read any of these, and I love them. I absolutely love them. Okay, now I'm going to go get the bird who's having a fit. Okay, Pickles is here. He's on his tree. So, next up would be my audiobook for this week. That was Grounds for Murder by Lush. It was a book from the library. It is a cozy mystery. It is the first in the series, whose name I will put right here. This was a very middle of the road read. It is my first book by this author, so I will give her another chance, but nothing distinguished this one from any other coffee related cozy that's out there. Our excuse me, heroine is a laid off journalist that comes home to her family run coffee shop on an island off the Florida coast and takes over for her pot smoking dad, who really is hands off. One of the baristas is killed, and it goes on from there. And allergies, wow. This was just forgettable. That's the best word I have for it. It was completely forgettable. There are more memorable coffee cozies. There are... Wow, okay, hang on. Be right back. Okay, cough drop acquired. So if I pull a funny face, it's why. Back to the audiobook. It was forgettable. Not bad, just forgettable, and no urge to, go pick up the next book in the series. So, take that for what it's worth. We all have different preferences. Yours may vary. Okay. So the next book is 100% fault of Amanda. She did a vlog for the book. I will link her vlog down below. She sent me a message saying, I want you to read it. So I was in a reading funk. It sounded interesting. I've never read anything by her, so I picked it up. That is The Women by Kristin Hannah. This is her newest release. This is historical fiction. And it is set in San Diego and Vietnam during the Vietnam War. I am old enough to remember bits and pieces of it. Not all of it. Obviously, I was a very young child as peace was ensued for, but I remember snatches of it. My father-in-law, God rest his soul, fought in Vietnam. Just realized I didn't put my wedding ring on this morning, or earrings. My father did not. He did, however, was in the National Guard for the Watts riots, which is also mentioned in the book. So this book opens up on Coronado Island in California, someplace I am intimately familiar with. My parents were married in San Diego. I was baptized in San Diego, in the small town mentioned on the mainland in San Diego County in this book. I went to college in San Diego until, very recently. We had family that still lived in San Diego County. So it is a place that I have a very deep personal connection to. And a lot of the places mentioned were familiar, and I could see them easily, and events that aren't covered in the book as part of San Diego history, but they're there if you notice them, brought a smile to my face, because I remember those things. So our heroine is Frankie, and the book opens up and it's a party at her parents' estate on Coronado Island, and you quickly surmise that it is a going away party for her older brother Finley, who has graduated from the Naval Academy and has been deployed to Vietnam. His parents are very proud of him. They're throwing him, in essence, a bon voyage party to go to war. Let that one sink in. It's as weird as it sounds. Frankie feels a little disconnected. She goes to her father's office, and looks at the wall of heroes for her family. And the one thing she notices is that all the men, or all the pictures on the wall, are men who have served in the military. And the only way women appear on this wall is through marriage. And one of her brother's friends comes and finds her and says, women can be heroes too. This spurs something in Frankie, and she graduates from San Diego Women's College, which was a Catholic women's college, which was absorbed into the University of San Diego eventually as a nurse. And she is determined to be the first woman in her family to be on the Wall of Heroes by herself. So she goes to enlist, and the Navy says, you need 2 years of stateside experience. And the Air Force says, you need 2 years of stateside experience. And Frankie's just like, I just want to serve my country. She goes to the Army. The Army says, sure. She signs on the dotted line. She has a date to go to boot camp. And she goes home and she tells her parents, and there is stunned reaction. And so young Frankie, she's 20, 21 at this point, and her brother has been in Vietnam for 6 months sending her letters, takes her parents' reaction as they are ashamed of her. And that is how she perceives everything they do and say in this conversation. That's probably a normal reaction for a 20-year-old. As a mature adult, I see it from her parents' perspective, and it was the fear and confusion, and they already had one child in war, and now their only daughter was going off as well, and they are terrified. So in the midst of this conversation, they get a knock on the door, and it's naval notification that her brother has died in combat. That sets up the novel. Frankie is a combat nurse. She does 2 tours in Vietnam. She sees horrendous things. She gains amazing skills. And has relationships. So the first one is Frankie is a good Catholic girl. She arrives in Vietnam a virgin with everything, a good Catholic girl, and raised in 1960s, in the 1950s, going to Catholic school, would have all those values. So those are the same values with which I was raised. So again, this was all familiar to me. Fireball, no. And she meets and starts to have feelings for one of the doctors assigned to her hospital. And she quickly learns that he's married. And she's like, nothing can happen. You're married. And she backs off and he backs off. But they have a emotional connection. You can feel it. But nothing happens. And soon enough, her brother's friend that found her in her father's den back home during her brother's going away party shows up in the theater of war and starts to woo her. And all I will say is Navy men. If you know, you know. But Navy men. He is a quintessential Navy man. I say this as the granddaughter of a Navy man in World War II. but also as the college student who watched all of her female peers chase Navy men on a myriad of Navy bases in San Diego County in search of their MRS degrees, and the ups and downs and heartbreaks and, that they all went through because of, well, Navy men. But said Navy man, fireball. Said Navy man is despicable. She does fall in love with him. Things do progress. And she believes he's killed in action in the war. So Frankie comes home and immediately begins to realize that she has issues going on. She's not sleeping. She's waking up, screaming, hunkered on the floor because she thinks bombs are dropping. She clearly has PTSD, and she goes to the VA, and the VA says, well, there were no women in Vietnam. We can't help you. She's like, no, I'm a veteran. I was there. I was a combat nurse. Nope, sorry, there were no women in Vietnam. We can't help you. And the book is a lot of Frankie spiraling out of control. But that spiral is understandable and extremely well written. And I did a lot of tabbing in the book. I don't know if you can tell. And there are some very powerful passages. And I just happened to open up to one. And it's talking about Frankie at this point and her girlfriends. And it reads, they wanted her to just get up, stand, to start to walk, as if grief were a pool you could simply step out of. In reality, it was quicksanded heat. A rough entry, but warm and inviting once you let go. And there is a very definite underlying discussion in this book. It's never brought to the forefront of the difference between grief and sorrow. And until you truly understand the difference between grief and sorrow, it probably won't hit you in the same way. Grief is something that we all experience. It's something that happens, we go through, and we learn to live again. It's unavoidable. Sorrow is that deep-seated grief that never truly lets go. It stays in the background and you learn to live with it, but that sorrow is always a part of you. There is just no moving past some sorrow. You can move past grief. You can learn to miss someone and celebrate their life and move forward. Sorrow is, I've moved forward and I know I need to live my life, but you can never actually fully let go. Sorrow it becomes part of your soul. And that is in here a lot if you can see it. And Frankie definitely has sorrow. And that inability to get past sorrow contributes to Frankie's problems. And part of it is because of the PTSD. She can't dissociate the two things. But I understand that told sorrow can gain. It's a very tight clasp when sorrow latches on, and if you don't guard against it, it will take you on the most horrible joyride of your life. This book is so worth reading. You will sob. I cried so much in this book. As a result of this, I want to read her entire back catalog. I may even read the World War II books in her back catalog, and if you know me, you know that's saying something. So, yes. Go put yourself on the wait list for the book at the library. It is currently a 6-month plus wait list at my library. So, if your library is like mine, it'll be a while. But it's well worth the wait if you want to get it through the library. Okay, so what else did I read this week? Okay, so what else did I read this week? Well, started the book club read, which is A Beautiful Disguise. I DNF'd it.
The character gonna be okay. I logged her in. She's in like a ice.
Fine. So, I knew after chapter 1 this was not gonna work for me. But I read until chapter 6. Yep. Chapter 6. And I couldn't. I couldn't. Just no. The characters are unrelatable. It is unbelievable. It is nonsensical. I didn't like a single character. It was just a beautiful cover that had nothing to do with the contents of the book. Oh, yeah, okay, there's feathers on her hat. That had something to do with the book, but otherwise, no. Just no. And it wasn't even because it had a circus setting. It's not even setting. Theme. It was bad. Our heroine is duplicitous and vapid and self-absorbed, and yet she lies to everyone, including her best friend. They have a pet lion, but they're destitute. It was bad. I couldn't do it. I was going to force myself to read it for a book club, but I can't. I am very sorry. I can't. So, it is DNF'd. It is going to the library, and luckily I had a scheduled buddy read with Amanda this month. That is The Nature of a Lady. It is also by Roseanna M. White. And I will admit we were both a little eerie about going into this one. However, this one is amazing. This one has relatable characters. This one has characters that you instantly fall in love with. And I am so invested, and I am so glad I picked this up immediately after DNFing this one, because had I not, I probably would have pulled every Roseanna book from my shelf and gotten rid of them. That's how bad Disguise was. But this one is amazing. And what's more amazing is that it is published 2 years before Beautiful Disguise, and it's a better written book. It is a vastly better written book. Don't ask me what's going on. I haven't finished this one yet, so that'll be next week. But this is a good lesson in DNFing is not a bad thing. And if you give the author multiple chances, you will either discover they're for you or they're not, but you never know. So it's always worth at least one more try. So I'm very glad I did. Okay. So that is what I read. What am I going to read? I'm going to finish The Nature of Lady. And then I'm going to probably finish Leviathan Wakes this week. And I don't know what else. It has been a very odd reading month. I think part of that is me focusing so much on beating Dave by the 1st of August. And it's killing my reading joy. And if that's true, when I pick up the next Dave book, I'm probably just going to space it out until December, because I would rather lose to Dave than stop reading altogether. And he's already told me he's not going to hide my book. So, you know, sometimes it is more beneficial to take the L than it is to get the W and shoot yourself in the foot at the same time. So, yeah, that is what I'm going to read this week. What'd you guys read last week? Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next week at the Protagonist Pub.